Hey, what's up, guys? Node investor here. Ethereum 1000, NEO 100, Tron, the moon, Ripple, the moon. These altcoins, guys, are hot. They are on fire. So let's take a look at some charts. How is everyone doing on this lovely cryptocurrency day? Anybody sleeping these days? Everybody having fun? Got a lot of folks here with us, people coming in. We're going to take a look at the charts. Let me take a look at your notes. I'm going to keep the chat box up as long as y'all promise to be nice. I know you will. Looking at these. So this was interesting today. I was watching Binance shutting the doors. They've been overwhelmed. They went Bittrex on us, which is, it's probably good because, man, I was really liking Binance. And then just the last couple days, week and a half, 2 weeks, it's like, come on, Binance, don't turn Bittrex on us. Don't turn Polo on us. And then look, this is why, guys. Crypto is just so hot. The CEO of Binance comes out and says, we added 250,000 new users in the last 24 hours. That's amazing. I mean, you thought Coinbase was booming. Binance, the floodgates were rushing in. Everybody was going in. Everybody wants their Tron. Got to get your Tron. But yeah, they got pretty slow, got pretty laggy. The app still works pretty good, but it's annoying when you're trying to do trading and stuff, and it's just laggy exchanges. The exchanges, I got to tell you guys, from coming from like trading stocks and trading other markets, crypto has got a long ways to go before those exchanges are what I would consider professional grade. They're very good now. Don't get me wrong. We've come a long ways, but it's just not there yet. We're getting there. So what I want to look at here is Ethereum first. Ethereum, $1,000. It's it's back and forth. This is let me go to the daily chart. And it depends on the exchange. I get all that. But we basically hit $1,000, right? We saw it on GDAGs. We saw it on some of these other ones. And it's just amazing that we're finally there, $1,000. And let's see what else has happened here. NEO hit $100 yesterday or the day before. Finally, right? It's been waiting for triple-digit NEO. I was really hoping. I had a bet with somebody. I was going, hey, if we're lucky, I'm going to see $100 NEO before the end of 2017. And man, it got close, but not quite enough. We hit like 85 in mid-December, but then it kind of faltered. And then it hit $100 3 days into the new year, which I'm not complaining. That's fine with me. $100 NEO, it's all good. So things are good. Alts are crazy strong right now. And yeah, NEO is still undervalued in my opinion. And it's kind of nice that it's just been steadily, finally marching up higher. I think it's got a way to go. It's one of my longer term holds, and I'm liking it, and I'm happy that NEO is finally at $100. And look at Bitcoin. Let's go to the BTC chart. It's just so tight, so range bound right now, and this is great for the alts, right? And this is so when Bitcoin was having its big hit, and I was talking about how yeah, it's scary. Anybody who bought Bitcoin at 20,000 sucks, but this is great for the alts. And that's exactly what we're seeing, right? As long as Bitcoins remain somewhat tight, range bound, and we've seen this in the past, you're going to just see these crazy altcoin runs that we're seeing right now. And so enjoy it. Take profits where you can. If you're trading, if you're hodling, then just enjoy the ride. You're getting some amazing pumps right now. But Bitcoin remains tight. So we'll take a look at some of those charts. Let me see here. Some of the questions coming in. Where do I trade? Everywhere, probably. I'm still very much, cautious when it comes to counterparty risk. So I don't ever keep 100% or anywhere near that much in any one exchange, just because as good as any exchange could be, I still don't trust anybody 100%. So I keep the funds moving around. I spread it out, and just depends on the exchange, right? The top ones have been Bittrex, Binance. I'll do GDAX. And I can't remember the last time I used Polo. It's probably been 6 months. So I got a KuCoin account recently, so we'll see how that one goes. But you know, I keep exchanges, you know, maybe once a year, twice a year. I'll go look at Cryptopia and throw some change in there and buy one of those small names. But it's primarily the larger one. So let me see here. No place to store them. When you buy on Binance, well, you can withdraw and deposit most any coin on Binance just like you can on Bittrex, and so you can use that. All right, so let's take a look at this Bitcoin. Let's cover the top 3, and then we'll go through some of the big names that we're seeing here. So Bitcoin still consolidating, kind of putting its moving average, this little base that it's putting in here. Now, the whole head and shoulder pattern that we were looking at a few weeks back, that's pretty much been invalidated. Now that this has been going sideways, it's definitely not a clean head and shoulders pattern. Now what it's turned into is more of like a little bit of a double bottom. We still haven't confirmed by getting back above that 16K, but the fact that it's been going sideways is just fine with me. It's still consolidating. I think we'll see some more flop and chop here. It was setting up pretty nicely. If you zoom in here on the 1 hour, you know, up here, I was thinking we were about to bust out, and then we had a little bit of a fall back and then just kind of bouncing. So we're just been very range bound, very tight. And that's good in my opinion. It's just kind of sitting tight. Looking at that 4 hour, it still looks good. Continues to look like it wants to break out. So if it can get above that 15.4 area or so, 15.3, you can see that finally that test of this resistance here. And that's going to be a key resistance level around that 16.4, 16.3 mark, depending on the exchange. But this is the Bitfinex chart. It'll vary by exchange. But if you look, what I'm looking at here is this key resistance level that used to be prior support that broke down. And so you can see here where, you know, we had this area where it was bouncing around and it rallied off of that. And then it came in and it bounced around support and then finally just smashed right through there. And that was the big sell off we saw. And then we bounced a little bit of a double bottom here and then a broader double bottom on the daily when you look at that. But this here is going to be a key pivot point that needs to be tested. And it's only been tested that one time. And then we kind of had this fall back and here we are. Starting to form a good little bit of bottoming process though, right? You see this low, this lower low, and it's starting to make a series of higher lows here, but it's still putting this little flag pattern right here. So I think once we finally bust above that 15.3, 15.4 area, very quickly it'll go to that next resistance level around 16.2 or so. And then that'll be the test, right? That 16.2, 16.4K level. And it'll be interesting to see what the alts do if that happens, because right now the scenario has been Bitcoin's range bound, alts are running. Bitcoin looks like it wants to shoot up like it did right here on this one big green bar day. And the alts took a little mini hit, but it was mostly a shakeout. They all just shook it off pretty quickly. And then Bitcoin falls pretty quickly, scares everybody. The alts pull back. So it's like, you know, if it goes too fast in either direction, you see that. But it'll be interesting to see if Bitcoin really starts to break above 16.4. Do we see a pause in the alt party and people jumping back into Bitcoin? Or is it kind of like the old days where they're more correlated and there's more confidence in the market overall? So if Bitcoin runs, the alts continue to run. So we'll see if we get there. But right now, those are the levels I'm looking at for Bitcoin. It's pretty much just sitting tight, and I am just fine with that. So going back to Ethereum, Ethereum's been very strong, the strongest of the big three, in my opinion. And it's been showing that. So if you look at the ETH BTC chart first, you can see there was a couple of key levels it was testing and it finally broke above. Let me go to the daily chart here. It's been very strong here. You can see just in recent weeks, right? We had these temporary pullbacks, but for the most part, it's just been very strong since being way oversold versus BTC. We came up to this resistance level here that had needed to test, and we're basically right there. We've been testing it a couple of times now. It'll be interesting to see if it just pauses and pulls back above this, but below this, and then breaks above. If it breaks above, then very quickly you're going to see 1100, 1200 Ethereum as it starts to move higher. It's gone straight up, so we'll see if it can pause here. But that's a floor that finally broke, and we went all the way down, and we basically did this big V-shaped move that we're starting to test. Now, on the USD side, clearly we're at new highs. You can see we've just been stair-stepping our way higher. You got to remember Ethereum too is making some changes to the project. The protocol is going through some improvements. The whole scalability issue is being addressed. And once they go to truly proof of stake, that's going to drive more upside pressure because it's going to be rewarding to hold more Ethereum. If it becomes a bigger platform and it goes proof of stake and there's scaling, solutions, and whether you like that or not, and to be honest with you, I really don't. I mean, proof of stake is nice from a, when you look at it from an environmental perspective. Okay, you don't have all the mining and the energy use and all that, and I get that, but it rewards the bigger money crowd. Those that have the most Ethereum are just going to continue to earn the most there. And unfortunately, it maybe not. It just depends on how the cryptos do it. But I'm going to see more and more projects go in that direction, right? It just makes sense longer term if you do some sort of proof of stake or some sort of, proof of influence or proof of importance, or however they want to spin it, versus proof of work type of models. So Ethereum's going that direction, and we'll see if that continues to pump the price, if people think holding more Ethereum is going to be more beneficial. But, I kind of like the model that NEO does, right, where you earn gas, and that's just pretty cool there. So Ethereum's looking good, hitting new highs. Maybe we'll pause a little bit here if it can't break above that BTC level. If it does, though, if it just kind of shoots up through the gate, it still has some technical room versus BTC on the RSI scale. So let me zoom this out a little bit. You can see, right now we're at 74, 75 RSI. And for crypto, that's usually when the party gets started. If you look at traditional trading and stuff, where people say, oh, over 70, 75, it's like overbought. And most of the time in crypto, I'm not too excited until it starts getting above that 60, 70 mark. And you can see typically RSIs start peaking out around 85 or even 90, like we've seen in some of these cases. And so on the daily scale, it certainly has more room to run if it breaks above that resistance. Litecoin, let's take a look at Litecoin here. So Litecoin has been consolidating after hitting that top in that mid 300 range. Still pulling in a little bit. Definitely not the strongest of the big three. Certainly looking like one of the weaker names here. I'm thinking it's getting close to finding a bottom, though. Let me do a quick Fib analysis on this to see this whole move up, how far down we've come. So if we look at Litecoin, that's almost exact peak to peak. I know it's not, but you can see that one big shakeout bar brought it all the way down at the 618 level, and then it's been bouncing, and it's kind of right in that middle zone between the 382 and the 618 level. And so far, that 200 range, right, that low 200 seems to be a pretty decent floor on this one. You can see that it's trying to hold up. There's better volume patterns coming in. If we zoom in on the 4-hour charts, here in recent days, the volume patterns are certainly looking much better. Off the lows, you can see bigger green bars, very little sell bars here. So that's good. That's encouraging. The price runs up, and then it kind of just pulls back a little bit and then starts to run up on bigger volume. And so that's what you want to see towards the lows, because it shows that there's some accumulation happening there. Price is being defended at these levels. And so that, 220 down to the 200 range is probably a pretty good zone to accumulate it at. So I'm liking it here. I'm thinking it's trying to bottom out here. In the big picture, we're going to want to see this base try to round out a little bit or start to head north here. The big resistance is going to be around that 260, 270 area. So that'll be the next level to clear. All right, let's look at so Ripple. Everybody wants to talk Ripple these days. It's on every news outlet I see, every media. Did you guys see that Forbes article about the CEO of Ripple Labs? Like, now one of the richest people in the world, because I don't know if you guys realize, and I know a lot of the newer investors, newer folks to the space, it's very much psychological, right? When they look at the price of Bitcoin and they think, oh, I can't buy a whole Bitcoin for 16,000, so I'll buy a bunch of Ripple for $2 or $3 or $4 or whatever. And, not thinking about the market cap perspective that, dang, like Ripple, it's just ballooned from a market cap perspective. And the crazy part is that number doesn't even factor in the entire supply. It just factors in the circulating supply. When you start to factor in the amount that's privately held, like, it's kind of mind-boggling. I mean, that's just a huge number. Now, obviously, if they dump that much on the market, it would certainly crash the price. But you just got to consider that, like, longer term, those people are becoming very wealthy holding that much Ripple. Is this thing continues to pump. So how far will it go? How high has it gone? I mean, it's just continues to stair step. No doubt it's been one of the stronger names in the market right now. You know, you can see the base there had this pullback, and it was like, are we getting any higher? Like, how much can it keep going? Now, one thing I am noticing is it's kind of odd to see the volume starting to stair step its way down as the price gets higher. So there's less buying pressure. Normally, you see the other way around where it gets higher and higher and higher volume, and then you get that climactic volume at the end where it's just all the buyers are exhausted, and then it starts to really pull back. So it hasn't really been doing that. It had a couple of good shakeouts here today, and you know, you get these little dips that just continue to get bought up. We had one yesterday. I was talking to somebody, and they were like, "Hey, that's a pretty good 15-minute support bar on Ripple." And let me show you that. I mean, it was a pretty good 15-minute bar. And today I sent him a text, and I'm like, "Hey, Ripple's up 64% since that bar yesterday." It was like, how high can this thing keep going? You know, but if you look at just this point here, that wasn't it here. I think it was this bar right here. But yeah, I mean, it went up further. I went 78% since that little shakeout support bar and on the 15-minute chart. And this thing just continues to see support every time it gets, you know, you see the little dips, it continues to get bought up. A little bit of a reversal doji at the top right now. Now, normally you would think that's a sell signal. The volume is not quite as high as you would expect it to see, but if you're familiar with some of the candles, that bar right at the top, right, it's not as big, but you can see it's a little bit of a reversal bar, higher volume than the prior ones, trying to settle out there. Maybe it just goes sideways here and puts it in a little flag pattern, or maybe finally undercuts that moving average. That's going to be your signal, right? If you're holding this longer term, it's been riding this moving average. And there's been some shakeout attempts, but it's pretty much found support, has not closed below that. And until it does, the trend is intact. So if you're holding it, that's probably my longer term signal, right? I mean, if you want to take profits into strength, that's a different scenario. But, you know, if you're holding it, you got to be willing to give it to that point. From here now, it's about 20% to the downside, right? So are you willing to give up that much more before you decide to step aside and let it correct? So, all right, let's see who we got here. We got Real Crypto in the house. What's happening, Randy? Let me take a look at some of these other questions, comments, folks coming in. We got a lot of folks starting to join us. And we haven't talked to NEO, so for those of you that are joining for the NEO 100 party, the ETH 1000 party, we'll get to NEO. Let me see here. Ripple's not being added to Coinbase. Probably not. Who knows? All right. Cool. So I think I've got through most of those questions here, and we'll keep going. We'll keep taking a look at some of these names that I'm liking here. So we covered Ripple. Stellar was another one, right? That's been kind of following Ripple's footsteps. And if you were around for the first kind of Ripple Stellar pump back in April and May, they were very much in lockstep back then as well. So you can see this big pump that it had here. And on the way down and on the way up during this consolidation, when Ripple had an up day, Stellar would pump. And when Ripple was going down, Stellar would go down. And they very much were in lockstep. Now everything changed here as they started to change platform styles a little bit. Stellar became a little bit more platform centric as opposed to just pure currency. This little spike here was the IBM news. And it just got quiet after that. And then out of nowhere, just really took off and has been, again, just like Ripple, one of the strongest names out there for sure. How high does it keep going? It's certainly extended, but it's trying to set up a new base up here at these highs. It's just kind of basing out here, trying to turn the corner. So we'll see the consolidation, how far this pulls back. Let me go to the 4-hour chart. If we do a fib retracement on this, it looks like it hit that first level already. Let me do a peak to peak. Yeah, almost to the penny. And so you can see from that first move up higher here towards the end of December up to this most recent run up, you can see the shakeout here today basically took it down almost exactly to that 382 level. Does it bottom out there? I mean, it certainly has pulled back the RSI enough to make a compelling case that that's the low in this move, and we start to build a new base around here. And so we'll see if that happens. It's trying to fight that 10 EMA, that declining 10 EMA, excuse me. If it can't get above that here pretty soon, then you're going to start to see it stair step its way down. But Stellar Lumens, another one of the strong names these days on the daily chart. just still very strong and just kind of sitting tight here at these highs. All right, so Tron. My goodness, Tron. So two things on Tron. Yes, it's had a killer move. Yes, it's extended. Yes, there was a lot of profit taking today. But I like this one long term. And regardless of, it's new, it doesn't have any project yet, all that. Look at the team. Look at the founder. Very strong, very connected. And when you look at that, and crypto is not his first startup or project. He's done other very successful startups. He's educated, Jack Ma and all that fun stuff. And so from that perspective, it carries a lot of weight in this industry, just because the better teams tend to have, better marketing, better tech, better resources. They can draw more talent and all that, and it'll just kind of give them that edge. Now, I think it went too far too fast. This has just been an amazing run up. And if you look at just the percents on this, just since the start of the year, oh my goodness. I mean, if you look at just from January 1st, we peaked out at, 550% in 4 days. So obviously a move like that is not sustainable forever. It's going to finally have to pause, correct, pull back, find a new level of base from which to launch again. And it looks like we're starting to finally see that here a little bit. You saw that big reversal bar today, that big wick. It's trying to rally it a couple times earlier. Zoom in on that 30-minute chart. You can see here, that's that big reversal, just kind of pulling in. Right now, it's sitting at the top of this consolidation. So that was a pretty good shakeout here earlier today, and then had that, it just pretty much shook it off. If you would have bought the dip earlier today, it would have made for a nice trade. Depending on where you took profits on just the trade, you're up, 60, 70, 80%. And that's, that's on a 30-minute chart here. So that's pretty amazing to think that just in a few hours, buying a dip would basically give you a 60, 80% return. So we're starting to pull back here a little bit. Right now, the near term, very short term level to watch is the top of this base from which it ran off. Now it's kind of pulling in, testing it. Will it hold? This is a very short term chart, so I don't think it will. I would not be surprised to see some more downside. Here's the 1 hour chart. Again, just trying to hold that moving average. If you look at the 4 hour chart, a little bit better for longer term. You could see it pull back to maybe down to this consolidation level here. If it doesn't pull back further, just RSI was just so overbought on this thing. It was 93, and it needs to sit tight for a little bit. Doesn't mean it just crashes, but it needs to sit tight. The thing is, there's only, there's very limited exchanges to get this on. Everybody wants it. It's getting a lot of attention. So I can see more upside longer term, and I think you will. I think in 2018, this one will be one of the big winners. It already has been, but I think you'll see some more upside as the year progresses. So I'm looking for another entry point on this one to see if it puts in a new base, ascending triangle pattern, maybe a little bit of a double bottom on a pullback. So just got to give this one a little bit more time, see what it does from here. All right, let's see what else here. Cardano, yeah, let's look at ADA. So that's one I've really been liking here. One of my top picks for 2018. And has just given you multiple bases here, just this long base, this first consolidation after that big pump, a little base here, and getting a little choppy here at the tops, and so trying to sit tight. Now, if you look at the daily chart, again, another one that just has had a tremendous run, and I think it's just due for a little bit of a pause, a little bit of a consolidation on the daily chart at least. But these kind of bases, right? This reminds me a lot of like how Ethereum was in early 17. Right, it had the big pop, and everybody thought, "Oh, this thing's already up 200%, 300%," and that's when it went from $12 to $40, right? And then it put in that big ascending triangle pattern, and it broke out above 50, and then it went to 100, and then it went to 150 to 9. And so that's what I see this doing, right? And you just got to be patient and wait. Now, if you're hodling it, you buy the dips, right? If you're trading it, these are good momentum trades, but you just got to be careful when they start getting this extended. Because then there'll be the quick pullbacks, the quick shakeouts, the profit taking. And we've seen that here. You can look at the 30-minute chart, and it's pretty volatile, right? These are big moves, and you can see just this one bar here, right? This is a 30-minute bar, and that's a 10% downer. And, the shakeout today brought us down 12% or so before popping pretty good. And so if you catch the bottoms on these dips, I mean, they're good tradable rallies, but more longer term thinking, I like this as a more of a hodl coin. And kind of look for these little bases when it sits up like that. Those are good entry points, especially as it starts to cool off. You're seeing a little bit of a divergence here on the RSI as it starts to run higher. So looking at the 4-hour chart, you can see that first peak here is a little bit low, higher than that other one. And when the price does that, a little bit of a red flag, right? So when you see a higher high and it just really strong, RSI is not quite as strong the second time. And it can keep doing this a couple times, but if you start to see these lower and lower peaks, just, it's a warning flag, right? Just don't get overzealous on that. Just make sure you're not buying at the exact tops, because you could see a pullback inevitably on some of these bases. But I like the project. I like the team. And I think this was going to be a winner in 2018. So let me look at, I've got a little watch list here that I've been maintaining, some other names that I've been trading, looking into, currently holding. Let's look at some of the coins I'm holding right now and see what they're looking like. So one of the big plays that I'm really watching in 2018 is some of the IoT / supply chain plays, right? And that's just got a real active business use case like today, right? Counterfeits, tracking systems, agriculture, wine, liquor, whatever, through the supply chain is such a huge industry. And it's not so much a public facing industry as much as it is a B2B, but it's just a huge business. I mean, every major business has some sort of supply chain implications to it, procurement and sourcing and all that. And so some of those names I think are going to play a major role with blockchain solving some problems in the supply chain world. And so there's some of the big names, and you've already probably heard a lot of these. So Wabi is one of them, one I really like going into the year. RFID tracking, blockchain, they've got an app. It's already a company that, Wabi is their blockchain project, if you will. And so this is one that I'm liking. I picked some Wabi up, so I've been holding this one. Still looking pretty good. Edging out here, had a nice little bit of a base. It's just giving you these little stair steps, but look at the volume on some of these. You got to pay attention when you see volume that big. It had the big shakeout. Tons of support came in and finding a new base and just kind of edging out now on that 4-hour. On the daily chart, again, it's still a younger one from a chart perspective. I mean, this hit the exchanges here just pretty recently, so you can see, but just how nice and clean that pattern is, just stair stepping its way up. One of the names I like, another one is Modem, right? So this one too, looking strong, a younger one here chart wise, but here in recent days has been giving you these nice little bases, tons of volume coming in, and just kind of sitting tight right now. If you look at that 4-hour chart, I'm really liking this pattern. It's giving you these little pops, pausing, a little bit of a pop and drifting down. So got to pay attention to that. I think this one's got some more upside. And these are smaller cap names right now, comparatively speaking, right? When you're living in a $800 billion world, nearing $1 trillion, and the top 20 coins are over $1 billion. I mean, these are like $100 million, $200 million market caps. And so they're still small. I think they've got a lot more upside potential. One of the big names in this space has been VeChain, right? Another one that's in that same space that's very good. And this one's been probably the strongest of the bunch here. And you can just see how nice this chart looks right here, and just still going. I mean, look at the volume patterns on this, just very little selling, just tons of accumulation, and it's still going. Now, this one, market cap perspective, has really climbed, and it's kind of up there already, but I see it continuing to grow going into the year. Walton is another one that's kind of in that camp. Probably not my favorite of the bunch. I think I like the other ones better, but this one's, still doing okay, setting up. It's been consolidating, since October versus BTC, and just still sitting tight, but it looks like it's starting to turn the corner here. You can see some of the pattern that it's putting in, right? Almost a little bit of an inverted head and shoulder type of pattern, where you got this low, got the lower low, and now it's starting to make a higher low. And if it can get above this little bit of a resistance level here, maybe it's going to be due for a little bit of a catch-up run here, like some of the others. So that 90, that 94, 95K Satoshi level is kind of what I'd be looking at here. So those are some of the names that I like in that space. It's a little bit of a sector, if you will, but you got to keep an eye on those. I think they just got a good use case right now. I think 2018 is going to be the year where we shift gears from not so much cryptocurrency based as much as let's get some real world applications now on the blockchain, right? The next generation of dApps and apps and blockchain centric data, big data collection, IoT, all that stuff. I think you're going to start to see more of that. I think the platforms are still going to be big winners this year, but some of these type of solutions are going to be things that start to materialize and start to gain a little bit more traction in industry, at least. And there's going to be some more attention here. So those are the ISC type of names I'm looking at. What else am I holding here? I've been doing a little bit of trading here on Lend. Lend has been a nice little trade here the last couple of days. You put in this very nice pattern here. Look at this. And what you look for on some of these is this trend line, right? So you look at the trend line, and when it starts to break above this trend line, as far as trading goes, right, when it holds the support and it gets really narrow and it gets really quiet, you can see volume starts to quiet out. It gives you an early signal here. So let me show you. There's this early indicator here. When it moves above that moving average, bumps that trend line, volume starts to come in. And then when it finally confirms on this bar here, that's kind of your signal to get in if you didn't get in on the early bars. But even from that point up, right, I mean, very quickly right up 50%. Had a big pullback today, but now it's just starting to consolidate here. And so that one's been good. I'm liking this one. ETH is similar to Salt. If you're not familiar with these projects, where it's kind of like the decentralized lending, Ethereum based. Salt's, a little bit different there, but very similar projects. Now this one is much smaller market cap wise versus Salt, so I think it has some more upside potential. And this one's looking pretty good. So again, another name on Binance. Got to keep an eye on those. What else is? Oh, Mod. I talked to Mod. I go by memory here, so let me think about what else I have been picking up. Oh, ICX is another one. ICX here has had a nice run since debuting there on Binance, and it was just one of those that once it came out was just stair-stepping its way up. Finally paused, gave us a nice little consolidation. I really like this pattern that it put in, right? It was kind of a base on base type of pattern where you saw this big consolidation here, and then it gave you this very nice entry point right there, right? So if you could have jumped in here, that would have been a nice trade, but then it basically gave it all back up and put in a little bit of another base. Started to form a little bit of a cup and handle here, right? So there's two of them. If you see this big type of pattern here with a little bit of a handle, was the first one I was watching. And you can make an argument for there was another smaller cup and handle type of forming here, right? With this being the handle right around there. And so it's just basing out in summary, right? And it's looking very strong, setting up, and try to break out here earlier today from a new high perspective. And you can see it's just kind of the battle's happening right here. It's getting really tight. You can see on the bottom side, this support line is starting to really narrow. And so it's just looking good all around. So full disclaimer, I am holding some of this. I'm holding some of these names that I'm talking about right now, but I'm liking this one. Project Perspective, right? They claim one of those third generation blockchain apps, but we'll see if they can pull it off. But one to keep an eye on. All right, let me catch up here with you guys. Some of these comments coming in quick. ICX 2x before the end of January. It wouldn't surprise me. Nowadays, man, nothing surprises me. When you see Tron and Ripple, nothing surprises me. Funfair, yeah, that one had a good move. We'll take a look at that one. Let me see here. All right. When we say go. All right, cool. So let me see here. Let's take a look at the big three here real quick. I know we got a few folks that just came in, and we're covering Ethereum, we're covering Bitcoin. We're looking at some of the big names, and then we'll keep going on some of the other names that I like here. So I'm looking at the list coming in. I'll start getting to those. Aeon, I've been watching that one. I like that. NAM, we'll take a look at NAM. NEO, Stratus. I haven't looked at that one in a little bit. We'll take a look at that. So okay, cool. Let me go back to BTC here very quickly. We'll cover some of the big names. Let me look at the GDAX charts here, see how those look. So BTC USD sitting very tight. Had that nice big pump a couple of days ago, and then just going sideways. And when it does this, man, those alts run and they run big, and I like it. So as long as BTC continues to sit tight. Now, from now, I mean, this chart looks like it wants to go higher, right? It's kind of been testing it, but the key levels to watch, and they're very clearly defined here, right? I mean, on the upside, if we can get above that 15.3, 15.4 level, I think you're going to very quickly see a run to test the key resistance here at that 16.3, 16.4. And so, from here up, if BTC decides to pop, that's a very quick 7, 8, 9% move to the upside. I think in that scenario, you're going to see a quick shakeout on the alts. Just has been the theme here lately, but I think it'll be a short-lived shakeout. I don't think you're going to be like how we saw back here when BTC was going parabolic, and every time it ran up, the alts were just getting smashed. I think the tone has changed a little bit, and BTC needs more broader consolidation, but I think you could have some more upside here. Now, on the downside, obviously, this level that it's been holding here is going to be the first level to be watching, that 14K, basically that mid to low 14K level. But it could even go down as far as 13.5 or so and still be fine. You don't want to see that, though. I think if it needs to break this pattern of higher lows, it really needs to test that 16.4 here pretty soon. Ethereum, see what Ethereum's doing. Is it 1,000 still? Been playing around that mark, that $1,000 level. Looking very nice from that perspective. Ethereum BTC, though, it's bumping up to a key resistance level. So watching that, go to the daily chart here real quick. You can see where Ethereum had that big floor that it finally broke down from a few months ago and has basically made a nice V-shaped move versus the BTC chart, bumping right up to that. Now, technically speaking, it still has more upside potential, so volume can start to come in. I think it could push above, but it would not be surprising to see a little bit of a pause just below that. If it gets above that, then yeah, you're going to see 1,100, 1,200, maybe 1,500, right? Who knows how quickly it could run at that point once it breaks that psychological mark. And that, it's kind of interesting to see that this key resistance level on the BTC chart correlates with a very key psychological round number of 1,000. And if it breaks above that, you can see a pretty good run on that. And then lastly, let's take a look at the LTC here. I think it's trying to put in a pretty good low here. Needs to confirm, but it's looking pretty good. I'm seeing some good volume patterns. If you go into the 1-hour chart, you can see there's starting to be a little bit more accumulation here in the last couple of days, trying to turn the corner there. So keep an eye on this one. It's looking like it's trying to find a good low here. And that low 200 mark is really a solid floor right now, right? So that 200 to 220 range is really a good place to look at it if it's accumulating there. All right, so let's keep going down the list. So I covered ICX, I covered Mod, Wabi, Walton. What else did I do? Did I do? No, I didn't do this one here. Okay, let's look at this one. So somebody was asking about Aeon, another newer name here. So this one's nice. It's kind of putting a very nice, like an ICO type of base pattern here. The volume here, it's not as big of a volume one yet. I'm surprised at how big the market cap on this one is, though. It's just very quickly went up the market cap list, considering how young and new it is. But it's giving you this nice little series of bases here. It's trying to finally consolidate. But what I do like about it is this most recent pump just saw a ton of volume coming in here that really pushed it higher. And the sell volume hasn't really been that dramatic, right? It's drifting lower as there's not a ton of buyers pushing it higher, but it's really starting to put in a nice little base here. And so as long as it continues to hold above this level here, right, this is probably a pretty good consolidation point. Will it come back all the way to the line? Probably not. It could, but this volume here is just really supportive. So I think if it gets close to that, you'll see some more buying. Maybe it puts in a little bit of a double bottom here. And on the upside, right, just watching that level for a breakout. But this one's looking pretty strong here. So I'm liking this one. We covered land. We covered, we didn't look at salt. I talked salt, but let's take a look at salt. So salt was pretty strong here for a couple of weeks and finally pausing a little bit, had that big volume right at the top, pulling in a little bit of a reversal bar here. Let me go to the 1 hour on salt. It's been pretty shaky here the last couple of days, pretty volatile all over the place. You're not going to want to see it undercut this most recent low, that's for sure. Otherwise, you'll probably see it stair step down further. So this level here, this level I'm watching on this, it's starting to cool off here a little bit on the RSI. So maybe it finds a low here and starts to base out here and maybe starts hitting higher. Let's see here. Cliff High predicted OMG to have a monster year. I don't know. Cliff High predicts everything to have a monster year. I think every coin he mentions is like gonna go to Mars. And hey, if you're holding any of the coins he mentions, then let's hope he does. But all right, EOS. We were talking about that one too. Finally pausing here. I really like the daily chart of EOS here and seeing if it can break out. It tried to break out here yesterday, pulling in a little bit, hitting that wall. But after that big run up it had, a lot of volume, finally pausing, and then yesterday just kind of had this little bump, but a lot of selling showed up here at these old highs. So the daily chart looks pretty good, but it's not confirming yet. Now it could be putting in a big cup and handle type of pattern, right? Where you see this low point that curves down and starts to get higher. And then on the right side, you see a lot of volume come in, hits the old highs, and then just drifts lower. And that's very normal, right? It's very psychological, because what happens is you get the sellers who are buying you get the buyers who are picking it up here at the highs, watching the price come lower. Once it gets higher up here, right, they're selling because they're breaking even, and you see the little bit drift. Once those sellers are exhausted, then it pops above. And that's just kind of what forms these patterns here. It's normal kind of market psychology, if you will. But this daily chart's looking pretty good. I like how tight this consolidated here, right in this level here on the daily chart. And then it's starting to move higher with some more volume coming in. So I think it's one to watch. There's a lot of debate about this project, the supply, the year-long ICO. I get all that. And even, the team, right? They've had a track record. But if they can do even half of what they say they want to do, this one will be interesting. All right, let's see here. Let me go down my list here that I've got. Some of the other ones I was watching, some smaller cap names that I've kind of been picking up here and holding that I like. I think they're going to have a good year in 2018. District's one of them. Okay, and full disclosure, I'm not pumping these names, but I do own this one, and I've been holding it for some time. But this one's just been having a nice couple of weeks here. Smaller cap, I think it has room to run. Another one that looks similar is 0x. And another one that I like, right? Especially with the whole decentralized, we just have a need for that. And if some of these platforms can really start to develop and we can actually see some good projects form on these are going to be big winners. And so I like 0x. I like District. So I think you guys got to take a look. Now, they have been on a tear, so they might be due for a pause here. Once they broke that downtrend, both of them just really started to run. These are nice. Like, me, at least, what I've been doing is I've been accumulating on the dips with these, right? You buy a little, and then when it pulls back, as long as it holds that broader trend, these are nice dips to really look at them and pause. But they've both been very strong. Near term, starting to feel a little long. I mean, they can have that quick moonshot, especially they tend to do that in crypto, right? You get the base on base on base, and then they pop them at the end, right? So you get this big move, and you get the pause, and then you get another move, and then you get the pause, and you think, oh, this is already done, and then you get the big move, right? Good example would be like NEM. It goes up, it goes up, it goes up, and then they pop them right at the top, and usually see the big volume come in. And so when they look like they've had too big of a run, you'll be surprised, especially the better projects, right? This one had this run, goes up, gives you a little bit of a pause, and then just big volume comes in, and you get a little bit of a reversal bar, and that usually signifies, okay, we're due for a little bit of a pause, a new base here. We're seeing a little bit of that on NEM right now, so hopefully it consolidates a little bit. NEM is another one I do like. They've been doing some good changes to their project here recently, bringing on Alexandra, right? She's kind of doing what what's her name for Dash? Oh my goodness, it escapes me. Amanda did for Dash, right? So that's kind of cool to see. And they're launching some new kind of NEM exchanges and all that. So we'll see if this one can keep going. Again, I think a lot of it too is the psychological thing, kind of like Ripple, right? It's at the top of the market cap list. Get some newer investors coming in going, wow, NEM's $1, $2. I'm going to buy some of that versus the $16,000 Bitcoin, right? I can hold thousands of NEM. And so, but I do like this one, right? This is a kind of original code blockchain. It's not a fork of anything. And so has some good potential. I've been talking about NEM for most of last year, and it was kind of not a good performer versus BTC for most of the year after that big pump, right? And here we are testing the old highs. You can see here on NEM, right? The old all-time highs. We had that huge run in April, May, and man, it was an amazing run. And then it just kind of started to drift lower and gave up most of that. NEM finally bottomed out, and you get that huge volume. If you guys remember me telling you, you got to pay attention when you see these moves at the lows. The volume was just tremendous. It had like a 200% day move. And you don't write these off. Doesn't mean you jump on them right away, but you watch them. Once they set up a new base like this, when you have that big of a move off the low, you got to pay attention and look at what happened. I mean, that move off the low was in one day, right? 200+%. By all accounts, you're like, well, dang, I missed that one, right? I missed the boat. And then it drifts lower, and it gave up quite a bit of that, but it set up this new base, didn't even break the 10 EMA on the daily, and started to move higher. Now, you didn't even have to get the exact low. If you would have bought the breakout point here, from this point up, I mean, you're up on NEM, right? A couple 100%. Let me see what the top is there. So from this point up, you know, at the top, you would have been up, you know, 300% still. So still not a bad move. So you got to pay attention when you see those type of volume moves. Volume is just one of my favorite indicators, if you will, when it comes to making trades and investments and looking for when to get in and when to get out. All right. Let's see here. Walton's going to the moon. You know, it could. It's got a good platform. Verge Pivx, Monero, or the other one here. What's that? I don't even know what that last one is. Which one would I choose? Oh, that's a tough one. Let's take a look at them. Without looking at the chart, I'd probably say Monero, but let's take a look at them. And I like Monero longer term, and I've kind of been a big fan of Monero, just so you guys know. So maybe I'm biased when I say Monero. But after breaking out, I mean, Monero is finally putting in a nice little bit of a base here, and it's consolidating at these highs. I like that. It just had a huge run on the USD chart. Once it broke above that downtrend at 85 or so, it just pretty much went straight up. Very solid pattern. And if anybody watched my live stream, I remember I told you guys, channel break after a top of a move is usually a sell indicator that it's at least due for a pause or you know, a pullback. And that's exactly what happened. I think that was the day it did the channel break, and I was doing a live stream, and I said, guys, this is a big volume move at the top, breaks the top of the channel. Usually that signifies a little bit of selling or a pause. And man, I mean, just the couple of days after, now granted, a lot of that was BTC, but holy cow, 2 days later, it was down almost 50%. Quickly recovered at least, but then started basing out since then. It's looking pretty good right now. Let's take a look at some of the other ones. Pivx, I think percent-wise, Pivx probably has more upside potential. But let me see here. Now, if you're not familiar with Pivx, it is a fork of Dash. A little bit different things that they did to it, which is good. Obviously, if you're going to fork it, you want to improve it or change it somehow. But the longer-term BTC chart on Pivx finally broke above that downtrend, right? I was watching this resistance level, and usually that's a pretty good deal, right? When it does that, breaks that, pulling right back, testing it. So normally what you want to see if this is going to continue is it comes back, hits the top of the downtrend line right here, and then it'll start to find a low there and start to hit higher. And so this one, from a percent perspective, I think can give you some more upside, right? So, you know, even testing the old highs on Pivx versus BTC, it's still 138% away. And so it doesn't even have to make new highs to have a very strong move. Verge. This one, I mean, it's had a good run. I think it's just still pausing. It's basing out right now. So wrong chart. There it is. And so I think it just needs more time to consolidate. It's getting very symmetrical. And what I don't like about it doesn't necessarily mean this is just a stronger name, right? It's getting very tight here. It's had a big move, but you want to see some more volume start coming in at these lows, right? As it tests the lows, as it bounces off there, I'd like to see a little bit more green than some of the red. It feels like it's just being sold off here, bounces and being sold off. So getting real tight. We'll see what it can do here, but it looks like it's got probably another couple of weeks at least before it can do something big. I mean, at least a week, right? So this is the 4-hour chart. On the daily, again, it had that huge run, got very choppy right at the top, made for some good trading. Maybe it's found a low here. RSI starting to turn here at the 50 mark. From a fib perspective, I mean, man, it retraced quite a bit, almost exactly to the 618. So that's pretty good. I mean, that's pretty solid. Maybe that was the low there, bounced straight up, giving you another higher low. And so maybe that one's done and just kind of goes sideways here a little bit before it breaks out above that symmetrical type of pattern. Now, the way I like to do these is when they're doing symmetrical type of pattern, if you want to get in early, you tend to want to buy the low end of the range, right? So when it does one of these little dip backs, so if it can dip right here and kind of bottom out right here, like this is the ideal scenario versus taking it when it clears the top of the range, because inevitably it'll pull back and test it and then go. And so ideally this is lower risk, because then if it breaks the trend line or even the lows, the prior low consolidation, then as a trader, you're just kind of like, that's get out of the way at that point, right? As a hodler, just depends on your perspective, and if you've got more of a stronger term belief long term, then you kind of take a different approach there. But either way, you can get it at a lower price. Why not? So let's look at the token cards. So 10x was one of these that was running here. Had a nice little bit of a breakout earlier. Was consolidating. This is the level I was watching, and then had the little shakeout today, but so far recovering nicely. So very loosely, I mean, this is a little bit choppy, but this is kind of the level I was looking at, right? Had that little shakeout, pulled back. I was watching this level here yesterday more specifically, and you can see this little consolidation here, right? It was testing it, pulling it back, testing it, and it finally broke above, and then it had the throwback, which is very common nowadays, where they have the breakout and they pull right back to the breakout point. And here it is, bouncing right off that, looking pretty strong near term. If you look at the 1-hour chart on this, you can see how strong that is just in this last hour. I mean, it's looking really good here. Held that breakout line very nicely. So I like that. 10x is looking pretty good. Monaco is another one that's looking pretty good. Now this one's a little bit wider and loose, right? So you can see had that nice breakout yesterday and just gave it all out. So that was a failed breakout. Now it's living below that line. But if you look at the broader term chart here, trying to set up a little bit here, looking a lot cleaner when you look at the daily chart. Now this one, the swings are wider percent-wise. But if you look at the daily chart, let me move this so that the volume shows up a little cleaner for you guys here. Look at that big volume here at the lows. I'm just trying to consolidate. This is a red bar, but that was a big support bar. And here just kind of drifting higher and almost a little bit of an ascending type of triangle pattern here, right? So you can discount a little bit of the overshoot and undercuts here, but if you look at just the broader pattern, loosely speaking, right, this is looking nice, right? The way it's tightening up. So that's what I'd be watching. See if it can hold this pattern here at the lows, and then start to move above and break out above this level here. So that one's looking good. Now the leader in this space here in recent days, what's the ticker there? CTR, yeah, that one, Centra. It's just been crazy strong once it turned the corner here at the lows. And again, this is a younger name, debuted on Binance in October and had this huge run, a little bit of a pause, and then just here in the last couple of days running again. And percent-wise, this is huge. I mean, if you look at just this run here, right, that's 700%. Massive. And then it gives you that big pullback to base. And once the base is done, another 80-90% here and still consolidating, moving higher. So of the bunch, this one is stronger. And then you've got token card, which I've not even looked at that one forever. So anyway, Monaco, Pay, Centra. So in order, I would say Centra first, and then 10x. All right, let me see here. Going down the list, let me check what we got here. Yep, 10x is breaking out right now. Technically, it broke out yesterday, had a little shakeout today, retested the breakout point, and bouncing off nicely. So I like it. We looked at Tron. I'll take a look again. later towards the end here, but let me get through a couple more of these names here. Digibyte. Yeah, let's look at Digibyte. That's a name from yesteryear that's really come back here recently. And so for anybody who was around back in April, May, trading that, I mean, that just had an amazing run. Crazy pumps, and then, pretty much gave up the entire move all year, but just found a really good low. And the positive here, and, I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but I hope you guys are getting the message here. The positive is this volume finally that turned the corner. I mean, the volume has just been very impressive on this guy. Just huge accumulation happening here at this thing as it runs, and it's just building a little bit base after base on here, and it's looking pretty good, right? It's just been breaking out every day. So you can see here, a couple days here, we had that big move, a little bit of a pullback, but it's being accumulated on the pullbacks and continues to look strong near term, right? Digibytes is, it's just kind of setting up right now, giving you another leg up. So if it moves above this, that's 745, 750, however you want to call that. As long as it continues to hold this little bit of ascending pattern, this one's looking pretty good. So got to keep an eye on this one. We'll see if they have any good partnerships. I know they've been trying, and they're kind of a gaming token if you're not familiar with them. Their platform's trying to transform a little bit, more of a broader use currency, 40 times faster than Bitcoin, all that stuff. But we'll see. They got good marketing, though. I'll give them that. I do like gas. I don't talk about it enough, but gas, I don't have any issues with gas. In fact, I mean, I think that's one of the best parts of that pair, right, is the gas aspect of NEO, which is pretty cool. Much smaller market cap. Obviously, there's not as many coins. So I think from a price perspective, it could have a lot more upside, especially once we start to get more ICOs coming up on NEO and more projects and starting to utilize some of that. So they tend to work in pairs, though. When NEO has a pretty good run, gas tends to do it, and they kind of alternate, and it seems to outperform a little bit. So I'd be watching that. You can just hear this is the daily chart, and just off the lows, right? Certainly has outperformed NEO a little bit, so it's up 170%, and had some pretty good days here, right? 20% here, and so it's pretty good. I probably don't talk about it enough just because it's not as wider known or common, but you definitely want to keep an eye on it, especially if you like NEO. But I think anybody who knows NEO is familiar with gas in that aspect. Tron. So we talked Tron, but let's go take a look at Tron. And if you missed my spiel on Tron, the good and the bad, right? I think it's had a huge move. I think 2018 will continue to see more upside on Tron. What I like about it is the team, the founder, very smart guy. This is not his first rodeo. He's had other projects, successful projects, startups in different aspects, right? All internet related. Now he's kind of doing a blockchain project, but still a like a decentralized very aspect of media, content sharing, that sort of thing, file sharing, which I think we need. But it's just had a huge run, right? And his connections, the resources, Jack Ma, all that, it's going to be very advantageous when you have a project like that. When you have that type of leadership, those type of resources, we'll continue to see upside. So they can continue to develop in the direction that they're going. I think this will be good. Now they've promised to lock up their coins until 2020. They're going to do a coin burn, so maybe that'll continue to push some upside on this one. But man, everybody wants Tron right now. It's had just an amazing move. I think it's finally due for a pause here. We'll see if we can get it. It's showing a little bit of that action here. So when you look at the chart, right, it had this little shakeout today and then had that nice little base. That's the level you're going to want to watch on Tron if you're in it or if you bought it here at the highs. As long as it holds this little bit of a level, this is near term, this is the 1 hour chart, then it's fine, right? It could put a new little bit of a base up here and then go. When I see these little reversal candles, right, you had the big volume followed by another big volume candle that reverses, tends to signify a little bit of a pause. And the fact that it's gone up how many 1,000% here in the last 4 days? Let's see here. Okay, maybe not 1,000%, but 600%. 600% in 4 days. That's not bad. Not bad for crypto, I guess. We can handle that. But can't argue with Tron, one of the strongest names out there, and still looking pretty good here. But seeing a little bit of a divergence here, right? When you start looking at the highs, is getting higher, starting to lose a little bit of steam there. So I think it's just due for a little bit of a pause, some consolidation, which will be welcomed, in my opinion, because I think it'll be good to see some pause, a new base to set up, and see if we can go. All right. Funfair. Let's see what Funfair is doing these days. I know I had a big move here recently. Oh, that's nice. So nice little base off that big run that it, had that big run here a couple of days ago, giving you this little bit of a pause, but it's looking really good. And I believe they finally released one of their platforms here. So that's a nice little bull flag. And honestly, when it comes to trading, now if you're holding this longer term, it's a little different story. But when it comes to trading, this is probably one of my favorite patterns other than the ascending triangle base. When I see these big runs, followed by a little bit of a bull flag, I mean, I just pay attention. I like to jump on these, especially at the lows of the flag when it starts to really turn the corner. They tend to turn into some pretty big moves. So got to keep an eye on this one. It's looking pretty good. Let's see. We covered VeChain. I covered a lot of those supply chain type platforms. I really like them. I think they're going to be big winners this year. Let me see what else. Anyone else got info on Binance crash? Binance crashes a lot. It's just being overwhelmed. So if you missed it at the beginning of my stream here, there was a, earlier Binance sent out a tweet saying, hey, we're going to stop new entrants. They're pulling a Bittrex. And, the CEO comes out and says they added 250,000 new users in the last 24 hours, which that's just amazing, right? So they had to close the doors, similar to what Bittrex did. Let's see how long it goes. Now, I think they're going to reopen sooner than Bittrex did. They're upgrading, and they seem to be doing things faster. And the platform's pretty good, so we'll see if they can do that. But right now, they're saying hit the pause button because it's just been crazy busy, and it's just good though because it's just been so laggy lately. And I was like, man, come on, Binance. And they seem to be trying to work on that, so pretty good. But let's talk about Binance Coin because I do hold some BNB, and I think if you're liking Binance and if you think the exchange has a good future, you got to pay attention to this coin. And it's been set up. Is it finally breaking out? Let me see here. Not yet on the BTC chart. So I've been watching this. Look at this setup on the Binance BTC chart. Had a good run a couple weeks ago, right? Just very strong daily pattern. Pause, another big pump. And look at this pause here. I'm really liking this base that it's setting up right now. Very flat, very tight here near the top. So let's see how far lower this can drift, but it's looking really tight, letting the moving average finally catch up. And I think you might see another leg up on Binance Coin. Now versus USD, again, just very strong. You can see these little pullbacks sitting tight, buying up on the dips. And it's just been consolidating here around that $7 to $9 mark. So holding me some BNB here right now, but I think I like the chart here. So when I'm trading lately, I've actually been on the Binance side of things. I've been flipping out of coin into BNB when the pair is available. And so that's how much I like the setup right now. Let me see. We covered EOS a little while ago. What do I think of EOS? I have mixed feelings because the pattern, you can't argue with the pattern, is very strong. It's setting up a nice base. There's some red flags with the founders and some of their past projects and some of the things they've done. Super smart people, no doubt about it. And if they can pull off what they're trying to do, I think EOS will be a big winner. You can't argue with the volume off the lows. It's just crazy strong action. And I like the daily chart right now. It's setting up really nice, to be honest with you. Had a little bit of a breakout attempt yesterday. The price I was watching was this low point here. Broke out. Seen a little bit of selling, profit taking near the old highs, which is pretty normal. But I'd be watching this one here. All right. So we've been going an hour here. I'll go just a little bit longer, guys, and look at a few more coins here with you, and we'll call it a night. Power Ledger. Yeah, let's take a look at that one. So Power Ledger has been another one that was really nice. Had that big run straight off the listing and then pulled back, finally gave you a low point here. And since then, it's just been stair-stepping its way up very nicely, finally hitting a little bit of resistance near the old highs, but I think it's just pausing here a little bit. It's looking very strong, and I like this one here. I think it's looking pretty good. Now, I don't own this one here, so just so you guys know, but I do like it. I'm looking at it very strongly on some of these dips and might have to start picking some of this one up. But when I look at the volume pattern, I mean, just very strong. I think if they can continue with some of the partnerships they've been doing and expand on some of that, you might see some good use case for this one. Let's see here. Omise Go. Have not covered Omise Go. Let's look at OMG. And so this is OMG BTC chart. Very nice volume. I've been holding my OMG here for a while, so I'm liking it. Still doing okay. Not too bad. Not as strong as I would have liked off the lows, but I mean, by any means, it's a huge move right off the lows. I mean, a couple 100%, right? But here in recent days, just kind of sitting tight, has these pops, but then just kind of sits tight. So looking good though, all around. I mean, just holding that moving average, start stepping its way up, putting in a little bit of a bull flag pattern, which I do like. As you guys know, this is a nice little bit of a pattern. So see if we can break above. On the 1 hour chart, you know, a little bit more choppy. It has these big shakeouts, which if you're trading it, it's kind of annoying because you catch the breakouts and then you get the shakeouts, right? You go up 7% and then you go down 20. Now, obviously, you get stopped out. Hopefully, you don't ride it all the way down. Longer term holds, different story, looks pretty good. But just kind of sitting right now, a little bit of choppy action on OMG. I was doing some trading on this one here a couple of days ago, but again, it was just so choppy that I just stepping aside for now on this one. But I do hold this one for more longer term. Sub. We didn't talk Sub. Another good name that I like right now. And man, this thing is breaking out as we speak. So Sub is looking pretty good. This one I think is going to be a big winner in 2018, and it gave you this base, right? This was really your opportunity right here. If you were liking Sub, when you see these ascending base patterns, this is probably all around my favorite type of setup in crypto. When I see a big run up and I see this type of pattern that gets very tight near the end, especially when it gives you these little shakeouts that really shake out all the stops, those are just fabulous, right? Because what tends to happen, right, is it's very common, unfortunately, is you see these patterns and they get so tight, right? And you think, oh man, this thing's imminent, it's ready to go. I'm just gonna buy it now. And then either you get the shakeout that shakes you out to the bottom, or in this case, you get both, right? Where it breaks out and then it shakes you out, and then it has this nice little double bottom support, and then boom, it's gone. And there it goes. So Substratum's looking pretty good. Once it broke out here, you can see, I mean, even discounting today, right, you were already up 20%. And with this most recent bar we're seeing, and this thing's just mooning right now as we go. So very nice name, guys. Substratum. If you're not familiar with it, look it up. Kind of a whole decentralized internet type of thing, which anything decentralized these days, I'm really loving. And we'll get to Stratus. Finally, poor Stratus. We just keep ignoring Stratus. And I have nothing against Stratus. So let me go to Stratus on another exchange here. So Stratus on the tracks, longer term, right? Finally turned that corner. I'm really liking that. Looking pretty good here. Starting to stair step its way higher, moving up. Volume starting to decline as it's doing that, which I don't like. RSI is starting to drift a little bit. So I'd like to see a little bit more oomph, if you want to call it that, behind the name here. But it's, you know, you can't discount it. Stratus is doing some good things on their project. We'll see. The problem with Stratus is just there's just a lot of competition coming, right? Some of these platforms, very innovative, multi-programming language embedded, you know, all that fun stuff made for ICOs. So I know Stratus is going after the enterprise market and all that, but a lot of these other names are too. So you just got to factor that part in. But longer term, it's still looking pretty good right now. It's stair stepping. As long as this trend holds, right, the levels I'd be looking at is, you know, this basically right where it's at right now. And at most, the old resistance that it finally broke above needs to hold. Otherwise, it's going to probably get a big leg down. So these two big resistance points right around that 88K Satoshi level, it broke out, tested it, held. So far, it's higher. So as long as it holds that, it's probably okay. Is Power Ledger and Digibyte a good buy? I think they are. Longer term, right? 2018, I think they'll be winners. Are they good buys like right here, right now, today? I don't know. Let me see. Power's pulling in a little bit. Probably not a bad entry on a dip. Digibyte, I think, was extended here. So you might want to wait on that. It's already breaking out. So if you didn't catch the breakout a day or two ago, or buy the dips when you get those, right? You get these little bit of a dips right now. It's breaking out above that resistance point I just drew on the chart here before we started talking. So maybe that's your entry point with a stop just below this most recent consolidation. And so what I'd be looking at is, maybe 10%, 8 to 10% on the downside, probably max. And that's my trading cap on, right? So if I'm looking at that, that's how I'd be playing it. Pioneer coin, I am not familiar with that. I've not looked at deep brain chain. Let me see, ethos, salts. Yeah, I like salt and I like Ethland. Okay, cool. All right, we'll look at one more and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. We'll take a look at BTC and ETH before we go. POE, Poet. I've been surprised at how strong this one is, to be honest with you, but it's looking pretty good. It's kind of having that big pump right now and a very nice pattern. I mean, this is, like I said, one of my top patterns, right? When you see these big moves and they finally give you that shakeout, if you don't buy the dip, right, you buy the breakout of the downtrend, which is basically doing right now. And that's how I like to play these, right? I like to wait for them to finish consolidating. And then I look for some of those early signals and you try to get in, right in that range there and jump on. Now it's broken out already. So it's already up from this. It's only 9%, right? In crypto world, that's nothing. But, you could see a little bit of retracement, a little bit of pausing pullback. So as long as you're willing to hold through some of that, this one's good. On the downside, the level I'd be watching is, kind of that consolidation low there. One of the higher volume names on Bitfinex, or excuse me, on Binance today. And so I think he's going to have some more upside on this one. So POE, just kind of been marching up very nicely. All right, let's, you know what? I lied. One more. Let's look at Quantum. I did want to look at that one. I saw you guys asked for that, and I had not covered it. Now, Quantum, I was really liking this daily chart. It's just starting to roll over here, unfortunately. This daily chart was just looking so bullish here. Let me go to another exchange here. It doesn't have that big wick, but you can see it had that big run up and it was just sitting very tight, started to break out and just not seeing any follow through, starting to drift lower, now below the 10 EMA on the daily chart. I don't like that big volume shakeout. Couldn't recover. Now it's not over yet because it's basically retesting some of these key support levels that it was consolidating above. So as long as it can hold and start to close back above this, not all bad, because it's letting the RSI cool off some more, which is good. And the volume isn't too crazy in the sell side comparative to the buy volume we saw on the way up. So that's good, but a little bit more cautious here on this one. Let's just put it that way, especially in recent action, right? Just kind of rolling over. Don't like to see that, especially after the big breakout. It's kind of a failed breakout, retesting. So I'd be watching it. I don't have any Quantum right now. I am watching. It's pretty much high on my, it's pretty high on my watch list right now, but there's just so many other names that are looking very strong right now. Agrello, I didn't look at that. I'll go ahead and do some research and look into that one. Let's take a look at the BTC here before we wrap it up. And actually, before we go, I want to cover some things with you guys, some housekeeping, give you guys a preview on some stuff that's coming down the pike here. So BTC, we covered just some of the levels I'm watching here on my marked up chart. You can see sitting tight here. It's going to be very interesting to see what the alts do when this thing decides to pop. If it does, that's the level I'm watching, that 15.3, 15.4 level. I think once it breaks above that, we're going to very quickly see it test that low 16K area, and we'll see where it goes from there. And on the downside, again, pretty much 14, that mid 14 level is really what we want to hold. Ethereum, this is the ETH1000 party, right? So let's take a look at Ethereum. Let's go to the USD side. $997.20. But hey, for all intents and purposes, Ethereum is $1,000, and it was $1,000 depending on the exchange you were looking at earlier. But hey, man, this is good. Okay, so let me see. We didn't cover Bcash. Man, nobody likes Bcash anymore. It's kind of rolling over these days here. Just sitting tight. I didn't, I was hoping it was holding this low. It's not. So until it can recover there, see what it, let me see here, Bcash, USD, get a little symmetrical here, but it's got that downtrend that it's just not been able to break. So kind of watching that. And really the downtrend I'm watching is more this, right? Kind of discounting that super big peak and watching the earlier entry here at these levels. A little bit symmetrical here when you look at the current action, see if that pattern holds. And if it does, then that means we're close to the lows on this pullback, and we're going to start to turn the corner and test that 2600 level again. So we'll see if that can happen. A couple of things real quick. Noteinvestor.com, if you're not familiar, going to be posting some more fundamental analysis on coins there going into the year. Cryptocurrency 101, most of you guys probably don't need that, but technical analysis, if you're not familiar with the charts, this is like fundamental, right? You got to understand support, resistance, breakouts, moving averages, all that stuff. And then some of the bases. What's a continuation pattern? Cup and handle, an ascending triangle pattern, right? What's a symmetrical pattern? Inverted head and shoulder pattern is a bottoming pattern, reversal bottom. A topping is a, double top, those type of things. And so I talk about that. And most importantly, I've added a money management section to this. So there's an hour-long video on just money management, using stops, scaling in, diversifying, all that, which is very important when it comes to trading, because that's usually where people get in trouble. It's not in, I didn't buy the right coin or I didn't read the chart right. It's usually they blow their account with money management, they break the rules, or they don't track their trades altogether. So I highly recommend that. I'm going to be doing some more live training on trading that I'm working on. So if you're looking to get beyond just the technical analysis and doing some more, learning on entries and exits and putting all the pieces together, and when do I buy and what's the RSI and the MACD and moving average and all that stuff, got to tell me before I get in and get out and all that stuff. So more for those that are interested in doing more active trading. And so I'll be putting those together, and look out for those here in the next couple of weeks, and they will be live. So I'll be doing some live trading with you guys, and you can always go back and rewatch those. Okay. Let me see here. Let me go through these real quick, and we will. Can we get some NEO? Let's look at NEO. We'll save NEO for last. Of course we will. I love NEO. NEO, by the way. Now, good and the bad. Now, obviously, NEO has had a run, so we'll pause here. Sorry about that. But I like this little consolidation it's putting in here. When it broke out on the BTC side, it's still not at the resistance level that I'm watching it, so I think we have some more upside. Let me go to the daily chart on NEO. This is on Bittrex. Let me switch over to NEO Bittrex BTC. And you guys have heard me. Anybody who's followed me for a while has been familiar with this downtrend I've been talking about here. We finally broke it. We consolidated right above it, and we're finally moving higher. The next resistance level I'm watching is right here, right? That, that 850 to 900 level or so. That's going to be a key resistance level. Let me put the line there for you guys. So that level right around there, and I think we will get there. RSI wise on the daily chart, we still have some headway to go. We got some upside potential. So yeah, it might do one of these, consolidate, but I think before the move is due for a good pause or pullback, we might see some more upside here. And that's another 24%. So that translates into $120, $130 NEO at least. And that just all depends on what BTC does, right? So that's what I'm looking at. I think we've got some more upside on NEO, and I'm continuing to hold it. I think in 2018, this is going to be one of the big winners, right? Market cap perspective is surprisingly small in this day and age, right? It's what, 6 billion or something. It's come a long ways, but I think it has more upside. So I'm liking NEO. $100 NEO, finally triple digit NEO. It's good to see. All right. So, yep. We didn't do Status. We did Stratus, but kind of running at the end of my hour here, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. And appreciate everybody holding tight here with me. Thank you for following. If you're not already, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button, and we'll go there. Let me see. I'm just kind of following along these comments here. We did Lumens. We did a lot of these names. We did 0x. So take a look at that. Cool. All right. Everybody, have a good night. Have a good day. Talk to you later. Take care.